Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is one of the best comics I've ever read. If you haven't read it, please do. The trade is out now. You can find it pretty much anywhere, Barnes& Noble, wherever. Just buy it and read it, please. We're going to go through it, including spoilers, so I wanted to put that out there first. Read it and come back and talk about it with me. Supergirl was created in 1959 by Otto Binder and Al Plastino, debuting in Action Comics number 252. There were a couple instances of a Supergirl prior to this, but the character as we know her, Kara Zor-El, debuts here. She is Superman's cousin, also saved from the doomed planet Krypton. We'll get into her origins in the review proper, as it plays a major part in the story itself. Woman of Tomorrow is a miniseries that began publication last year. It was written by Tom King, with art by Bill Quitz-Evely, and colors by Mateus Lopez. King has an interesting entrance into comics. He was working in the CIA, but left when he had his first child, and wrote his debut novel, 2012's A Once Crowded Sky. That novel got him noticed because it was a superhero story, and he began working with DC. He started with Grayson, the series where original Robin Dick Grayson became a super spy. But it was the Vision series at Marvel that really got him noticed. He then got an exclusive deal with DC, writing Batman and Heroes in Crisis. Evely is a Brazilian artist known for her work on Wonder Woman and the Sandman universe. Lopez previously worked with Evely on that Sandman stuff. The project began when King was talking to his former Batman editor who had moved over to the Super Family books. The editor was lamenting that they couldn't get the Supergirl book to sell. It had been canceled twice during the Rebirth era, despite having a television show on the air. Surprised by this, King was offered the chance to pitch the character with the marching orders to make her awesome. The immediate thought was to make a sort of space western heavily inspired by Conan comics. When Evely was brought on board, she sent King a mood board filled with Mobius-influenced pieces that became the basis for the story. Crazy alien landscapes. Getting into issue 1, let's talk about the cover. All the covers were done by Evely and Lopez, and it's an awesome cover. We'll talk about the art a little later, but this is a terrific preview of it. It looks like a movie poster. The image of Kara holding the sword against a red sun is just awesome. The narrator of our story is a young woman named Ruthai, named after one of King's nieces. It begins with her father being murdered by this man, Krem of the Yellow Hills. Ruthai swears vengeance and goes to find someone she can pay to kill Krem using the sword Krem left in her father's body. Ruthai comes across Supergirl in a bar. Remember, this is on an alien world with a red sun, so no powers for Kara. It is her 21st birthday, and she came here with Crypto the Superdog to get wasted. Kara's characterization in this is going to be polarizing for some people, and it was shocking to me at first, especially if you're used to the TV show, which was a very wholesome take on the character. This story suggests that yes, Kara is wholesome and kind, but she's got a lot of baggage, and it's really starting to come out of her. She swears like a sailor, which I like a lot. This is a much edgier, sassier Kara. Drunk Kara beats up a guy in the bar that tried to steal the sword from Ruthai, so Ruthai decides that Kara is the one who can kill Krem. Kara declines because she's a superhero, not a killer. Kara tries to leave on this spaceship, which is how her and Crypto made it to the planet, red sun and all. During this scene is a really key moment. Ruthai and Kara are meant to parallel each other, with what happened to Ruthai bringing up a lot of PTSD for Kara. Ruthai says she lost her whole world, which Kara obviously did. Much more literally. Kara responds by saying to herself, I came here on my birthday so I wouldn't have to always think about. I prefer Kara over Superman. I guess I prefer her over everybody. She's my favorite superhero. A big part of what makes her so compelling is that she remembers Krypton. She was there. She lost her whole world. What does that do to a person? Different versions have tackled this in different ways. The Jeff Loeb take gave her a tiny bit of amnesia to kind of soften that blow. The New 52 take made her a much angrier character. And the TV show had her arrive a little younger, and it gave her a support system in a sister, Alex Danvers. That sort of made it a little easier for her to grow up and adjust to Earth. But even that version, the Melissa Benoist version, still has a lot of baggage that she has to deal with in seasons 1 and 3 especially. And it's admirable that she can go through all that and still fight for good with a smile on her face. In this story, like I said, that baggage is really starting to come out. She's struggling. The guy Kara beat up in the bar went and found Krem, telling him that this young girl was plotting to kill him. They attack Kara and severely injure Crypto. Kara powers through like an absolute boss. Swords and arrows? Don't you even know who I am? I'm Supergirl. Do Do you think I give a about swords and arrows? Krem flees into the spaceship, which was on an automatic launch. It takes off with Krem inside, leaving the injured Kara and Crypto stranded. Issue 2's cover has Kara and Ruthai at a bus stop, which is fun. That's part of the genius of this series. It's often a very heavy book with a lot of darkness in it, forcing Kara to face atrocities, but it's also still really fun. It's a tricky tone, but the creative team nails it. The second issue is basically an eventful bus ride. Kara and Ruthai have to travel through space public travel to get back to a yellow sun. Krem hit Crypto with a poison arrow, and the vet doesn't know how to cure him without knowing Krem's specific poison. And the attack was so sudden, Kara doesn't know what Krem looks like, so she agrees to take on Ruthai's offer and find Krem. So they're on this bus. There's one instance of some criminal trying to start something, which Ruthai says in her narration happened a lot. I'm wearing a big yellow S on my chest, and a very fashionable red skirt. So if I'm not Supergirl, who the f*** do you think I am? King effortlessly balances the fun of Kara's personality with pain, tragedy, and sorrow. There's a really sweet moment where Kara teaches Ruthai how to wash her hands. That's followed by Ruthai asking if Kara ever sought vengeance for the death of her family and her world. No, I didn't. The narration is key to this story as it is entirely through Ruthai's point of view. We're seeing Kara entirely through her eyes. It is her impression of Kara. This is a girl that is suffering through a tragedy, recognizing that in someone else. The highlight of this issue is that the bus comes across a dragon, a Carpane dragon. It's absolutely stunning. It eats metal, such as a space bus, so Kara needs to stop it but doesn't have powers. Bummer. However, apparently, red kryptonite has been turned into a drug or a pill. It makes most people hallucinate, but with Kryptonians, it'll make whatever they imagine true. Another passenger happens to have some, so Kara takes it, and she gets a power boost from it that resembles something like the Phoenix. But it's actually a reference to Supergirl of the 90s. Kara was killed in Crisis on Infinite Earths and thus erased from DC's history as they felt they needed to simplify the Superman mythos and there were too many Kryptonians. However, Supergirl was popular, so they brought her back in a kind of weird way that is now mostly referred to as Matrix Supergirl. I don't really have time to get into that, and it kind of confuses me. She merged with an angel or something.
I don't have time to unpack all that.
Point being, this is a reference to Supergirl of that time. This is a good time to talk about the art because, oh my row, it is amazing. Some of it is just breathtaking to look at, incredibly cool and powerful images with absolutely gorgeous colors from Lopez. Emily also conveys a lot with the characters. There's so much emotion in her drawings. Issue 3's cover is very solid as well. Crazy and intense. Kara and Ruthai track Krem to a planet called Corone, in a town called Maypole. However, when they talk to the mayor, he claims to have never heard of Krem, though he is clearly lying. The entire town is hiding something, everyone being a blue, though there are still references to purple people. This is kind of supposed to be America in the 50s. That's the design vibe. And there was clearly a prejudice towards these missing purple people. What Kara finds out is that Krem was here, but had been arrested. This group called Barbin's Brigands show up. They are basically pirates which go from planet to planet committing holocaust. If a town can pay, the Brigands will move on to the next city. Maypole didn't have the money. Krem hears two of the blues talking about the dilemma and offers a solution. They can pay a smaller amount and also offer up the purples up to slaughter. And that's what they did. Kara finds a mass grave, and the Brigands were so impressed with Krem's awfulness that they allowed him to join them and they took off. The genocide is really truly horrifying, and it kind of takes the story beyond its simpler trappings. This is what evil truly is. And as Ruthai states, it's too big. It's overwhelming. What can you do to fight against something like that? This continues on in issue 4, which has a stunning cover. The issue is basically Kara and Ruthai going from place to place witnessing the aftermath of the Brigands' genocide. Through it all, you see an intense kindness from Kara. There's a beautiful moment where Kara helps a lone worker dig the necessary number of graves for the haunting amount of dead people so that his daughter won't get put in a mass grave. One town has video recordings of what the Brigands did, which Kara watches, and it really gets to her. A member of the Brigands was left for dead, and the remaining town stones him to death. Supergirl doesn't participate, but also doesn't stop it. She's so overcome that she has to fly to the sun and scream just to get it out. Something she couldn't have done on the surface without leveling the planet. The issue contrasts Kara's immense warmth and kindness with the most horrifying evil there is. It's pushing her to her limit. I imagine the stoning thing will be a problem for some people, but I'm kind of glad it happened. It's powerful. And Kara digging graves will become even more heart-wrenching once we get to issue 6. Issue 5 might be my favorite of the series, that or 6. The cover is very cool again, an enticing image. Kara and Ruthai have caught up to Krem. However, he was prepared. He has a Mordru globe, which is a magical object that can teleport your target wherever. Creating one requires death on a scale of thousands, further cementing how evil Krem is. Krem sent them to Barenton, a place that was created as a death trap for Superman. It is filled with vicious dinosaurs and a green sun basically acting as kryptonite. I don't quite understand how kryptonite became a sun, but I'll roll with it. Superman had previously told Kara that it was the worst pain he ever felt, and he barely survived, luckily being rescued by the Justice League after 45 minutes. Kara and Ruthai have 10 hours before the sun will set. They take shelter as best they can, with Kara laying down to suffer and to try to rest. This is a fun role reversal, as Ruthai now has to protect Kara, and manages to do so. It's really terrific for her as a character. There's also a lot of fun dialogue as the Green Sun makes Kara a little delirious. This is a really intense situation, and I like it a lot. The sun finally sets, and they leave. Issue 6's cover is great, promising Comet the Superhorse and Kara's parents. Kara and Ruthai catch up to Krem again, but he's managed to make a second globe. This dude murders so many people. However, Kara is ready this time and brought along Comet. They race to the end of the universe, which is depicted in black and white, where the globe loses its power and Kara is able to just pop it. During the chase across space, we get flashbacks to Kara's origin. Now this is where things get interesting in regards to continuity and canon. This is a fully canon story, by the way. It's not an Elseworlds, but canon doesn't seem to mean a whole lot to DC these days. They're pretty fast and loose with what is or isn't in continuity, it basically being up to whatever writer is writing whatever book. Basically, everything is canon. How that relates to King is that he is going back to Kara's Silver Age origin where she debuted. So Kara's original origin was that when Krypton exploded, scientist Zor-El managed to put Argo City safely in a protective dome with an indefinite amount of oxygen. Argo then just kind of goes through space. Zor-El and his wife Allura have a daughter, Kara. The ground irradiates into kryptonite the closer they get to a yellow sun. So they cover the ground with lead, saving them. But a little while later, a meteor shower penetrates the dome, dooming Argo City. It is at this point Zor-El and Allura send now teenage Kara off in a rocket to Earth to be with her cousin. Like I said earlier, Kara was killed and erased from existence in Crisis on Infinite Earths. However, she was brought back to continuity in 2004 by Jeff Loeb with a new origin that has more or less stuck as her main origin in both comics and television. That being, Kara was born on Krypton and grew up there, and was sent off the planet at the same time as baby Kal-El, but her pod gets trapped in suspended animation for various reasons depending on the version, while Kal-El grows up and becomes Superman. I personally prefer the latter version, particularly the TV show's version of it. I think that is the cleanest and most compelling take. Hashtag make Alex Danvers canon. What King wanted to do here was strip some of the more complicated, convoluted things that had happened in later Supergirl stories and get to something simpler, particularly referencing the story in which Zor-El became Cyborg Superman in the New 52. And I do get that, but I don't think going back to the Silver Age is necessarily the way to do that. That origin is very convoluted and very weird. King's more compelling case for doing it comes from something Steve Orlando, the writer of Supergirl Rebirth, told him, which is that Kara watched her world die 3 times. So King still does use a bit of Loeb in that Kara was born on Krypton and watched it die. Then the irradiated ground. King adds to this by having Kara be one of the people putting down the lead, ultimately doing it by herself. And once she was done, she turned to building crypts, including one for Allura, who had died along with thousands of others when the ground turned to kryptonite. And then the meteor shower destroys Argo entirely. Kara being the sole survivor. King makes a terrific case for this origin, as reading it is really heart-wrenching, especially with the final line of the origin section, "She was 14." King is playing with Silver Age concepts like the Argo City in a Dome thing and Comet the Superhorse, and yes, this is Silver Age Comet, and recontextualizing them in really interesting ways. 6 ends with Kara and Ruthai going back to Krem, who has not had time to make a new globe. 7 has Krem tied up on a beach that Ruthai has adorably named Kara's Beach, with Ruthai watching him and Comet watching her. The Brigrands are super loyal to their members, so they have chased our heroes to take him back. Kara meets them in space where a fight breaks out. Kara ultimately loses because they had just enough kryptonite to make chains and a single bullet. Comet can hear she's in danger, but is supposed to stay and make sure Ruthai doesn't kill Krem. However, she convinces Comet to help, leading into the final issue. Comet saves Kara, but dies in the process, reverting back into a man. Comet's backstory is convoluted. He was a centaur who wanted to be a man, but accidentally became a horse instead. He's also in love with Kara. It's complicated, as Kara says in the issue. Point is, Kara is able to break free thanks to Comet's sacrifice and beats the Brigand back. Meanwhile, on Kara's beach, Ruthai has untied Krem and placed the sword between them so that her vengeance can be fair and just. She's able to win the fight, but can't bring herself to kill him. Then Supergirl shows up with Comet's dead body. She takes the sword from Ruthai with the intent to kill Krem. Ruthai argues that they can't because they need him for Krypto's cure. Kara then reveals that Krypto will be fine. She lied. She never needed Ruthai. Supergirl went on the quest because she knew Ruthai would never stop. She wanted to show Ruthai that a life of vengeance wasn't the way. But in another choice I'm sure will be controversial, Kara has seen too much and been pushed too far. She's going to kill Krem. However, Ruthai is able to talk her down with a powerful monologue. King's writing here is masterful and inspiring. The epilogue takes place in the future. Kara had Krem imprisoned in the Phantom Zone, who, over the course of 300 years, repented his evil ways. Kara sets him free, and Ruthai doesn't forgive him, but also doesn't kill him, just hitting him with her cane. Someone as evil and horrific as Krem found change and redemption, but it doesn't mean Kara or Ruthai have to forgive him. The narration tells a different story, as it is revealed the narration is a book Ruthai wrote about her time with Supergirl. But Kara asked her to change the ending, saying that Kara killed Krem so that the Brigands would come after her and not Ruthai. The final page directly mirroring the first of issue 1. I've talked a lot about why I love this as we summarized, but let me just say a few more things. King's writing is great. I cannot praise him enough. I really enjoyed the world building here. It's simple but really effective. It reminded me of Star Wars. The world feels very lived in. The dialogue is also really on point, with every character really having a distinct voice. The lettering by Clayton Cowles is really strong. I particularly liked the formatting of the narration. A lot of personality in the text, which is helpful because this is a very wordy comic. And I do think it's important to say that this is a great comic book. It is perfect for this medium, using the format of monthly issues to its benefit. You can read each issue of this comic and be satisfied, but when read all together, it also creates a satisfying overall narrative. This would be a difficult thing to adapt. It's possible, but comics don't need to become movies or TV shows in order to be legitimized. This is a great piece of literature, and I do know how pretentious that sounds, but I do mean it. It's crazy excellent. If I had to complain about anything, there were a few things that made me scratch my head. Just some stuff that isn't really explained, such as the green sun. The emotional impact always lands, so I don't really care, but rereading it, there were a few times where I was like, wait, what? I don't think this sold super well, but from what I can tell, sales numbers aren't super reliable, so I'd appreciate it if someone could give me an idea of how this did. It got nominated for an Eisner, which was awesome, but they didn't get a hardcover trade, just a paperback, which feels like a bad sign. Truly, as someone that loves Supergirl, it kind of feels like DC has given up on her, like they just don't have faith in her as a character, and it's felt that way for a while. King actually wanted to do 12 issues, but was told no, he could only get 8, because they don't believe in her. Which, screw you, DC! You have a book this good with a high-profile writer, an amazing art team, and an Eisner nomination, and you can't make that sell? If you present an attitude that a character is secondary and doesn't matter, guess what your audience is going to take from that? That character doesn't matter and they shouldn't bother with her. Like, come on, I should not have to beg and plead with people to read a book this good. Anyway, I could not recommend this highly enough. Please buy the trade if you can. I really want a hardcover, and I want more Supergirl. This is a terrific character who is always having to prove her worth in spite of all of this great material she has. Kara proved she could stand on her own decades ago. Like I said, the writing is excellent. It's a powerful story that tests every fiber of Kara's being. The art is absolutely stunning, some of the best I've seen. I think this comic is one of the best comics I've ever read, and it's a really defining story for Kara. This is her All-Star Superman, her Dark Knight Returns. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Have you read this story? What do you think? What do you think of Supergirl? What are some of your favorite stories with her? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.